Hey everyone, it's Bob Crossan. I'm the editorial director for Wastewater Digest. I'm joined today by Cheyanne Harris. She is Senior Associate Engineer for Brown and Caldwell, and she's also a 2023 WWD Young Pro. So thanks for being on the call, Cheyanne, and also congratulations.
Thank you, Bob. Really glad to be here today and share a little bit more about myself.
Yeah, well, why don't we just jump right in then? Could you talk a little bit about why water ended up being kind of where you landed, and how did you get to this point in your career?
Yeah, my career path definitely started pretty early on in life, really was rooted in my time in middle school. I actually attended a specialized middle school that encouraged kids to pursue careers in engineering and science. And what I really appreciated about the school was that it frequently brought in guest speakers to share about their experiences as engineers in science. And the thing that really appealed to me was how these folks use their technical backgrounds to improve the communities in which they lived. And for me, that was it. I was like, I know I want to do something that's impactful to the community, that makes a positive difference in the world that we live in, and something that I could use my interest in math and science to do those things. And that's really where my interest in engineering as a whole was peaked. So I continued to explore that as I advanced through high school, and then coming into college, really just explored a number of different engineering fields, but really landed with civil engineering because I liked the direct impact on society and seeing that impact through physical infrastructure.
Yeah.
I
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say my interest in the water field specifically actually came about after I graduated college. I took a job at a consulting firm working primarily on infrastructure projects for cities, mainly pipelines and pump stations, and actually really enjoyed that work. So just kind of fell into the water industry through that first job straight out of college, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So it's always been about the community impact, and you just somehow discovered that water has a really tremendous community impact over time.
Exactly.
Well, is that how you pitch what you do to other people? Like if you were to pitch your job to someone else and say, "Hey, you should do this job too." Is that where you would start? Like how would you start that pitch with them?
Yeah, for me, the pitch is really rooted in collaborating with folks of lots of different backgrounds and making that positive impact on the community, because those are really the two strongest things that attracted me to the water industry from from the beginning. I'm also the type I like to learn about lots of different things and learn from people and their experience. So I like that I'm getting all those aspects, in my career as a water professional. And that's definitely what I pitch to folks who are maybe interested in entering the water industry, the collaboration, community involvement, and also that growth opportunity with folks around you.
Yeah, it is a very this industry is very grounded. I feel like all the young professionals I've talked to about this and kind of like why they ended up in water and why they like it is that ground level feel of like I'm making a direct impact to someone's bottom line life, right? Like you're creating a floor and you're raising a floor for a lot of folks too in some areas.
Absolutely. And I also like the flexibility and the ways you can go about in the industry. For me, I work as a project engineer largely on infrastructure projects, but there's folks that maybe want to specialize in treatment technologies or be operators at different plants. So there's a lot of different avenues you can take depending on your interest in the water industry. So that's also of appeal to folks too.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that was mentioned a lot with the last year's Young Pros is just how diverse of careers there are in the water industry, and like we still need marketers. I'm a journalist,
Exactly.
you got all these different titles, and you need IT folks. Cybersecurity is becoming a bigger talking point. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's like something for everyone in the industry, really.
really is.
Yeah. Well, what about some projects that you've done? Is there one that you look back on and you're like, oh, that one I think is probably one of the cooler ones, or is there one that's made you most proud over the years?
Yeah, there's one project in particular that I've been involved with for the past couple of years, and it's actually ongoing. I'm based in Sacramento, California, and this particular project is a proposed reservoir in Northern California in Colusa County. And for me, this project is really of significance in that this is the first time in about 40 years that California is building a major off-stream reservoir, and it's taking a lot of partnership from not only the local agencies that are involved in building the project, but also collaboration with the state and federal governments and everybody in between. So I like that lots of different folks coming to the table to build this project, learning from folks of all different backgrounds, whether it's financing or funding or even water supply operations in regards to each of these agencies. And I like just the variety of work that comes in involvement with this particular project. The project itself is still in the planning phases, and it'll be a few years out before it's actually constructed and eventually operated. But I just really like the strong learning opportunity I've gotten in the past couple of years being involved, and definitely want to see it come to fruition in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, it's aligning a lot of what you said you liked about the job, right? You had first of all, it sounds like there's just a community of people who are helping to build this, but it's also impacting an actual like local community. And then it
Mm-hmm.
also the learning side, like you said, it's like diversity of voice and understanding is really empowering, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what do you do outside of the office? I obviously projects like this can be really consuming, and I imagine you want to uh, get your mind at ease or decompress a little bit from time to time. What do you do outside of the office to try and decompress, or are there hobbies that you enjoy to get away from everything?
Yeah, my favorite particular hobby is actually traveling, particularly international trips. So the past few years, I've had the fortune of traveling internationally to Egypt, Tanzania, Ecuador, and a host of other places. So very happy about all of that. When I'm not traveling, I also have a pretty strong background in music. So I grew up playing the saxophone and continue to do that. And then about the past year, took up piano. So that's been a great way to learn a new hobby, but also just mess around and continue my music ability and grow in that regard too. So between traveling and piano, those are really my main two hobbies at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, testing different skills and then just going to new places, seeing new things. Are there things that you've seen and on those international trips you're like, "Oh wow, that's kind of informing the way that I view things differently?" Like being a water professional, I feel like international travel oftentimes you're like we're starting to look at the water and like how they use it there.
Yeah, I'm definitely the type I nerd out pretty extensively on any sort of trip when it comes to water infrastructure. The most, I would say, impactful one was when I went to Egypt. There's this major dam that's in the southern portion of Egypt, in Aswan, where essentially in the 60s, a whole community of folks had to be displaced in order to build this dam that provided water supply for the rest of the country. So it was this really, massive piece of infrastructure that it was cool to see from a technical standpoint, but then also thinking about that social element of, well, how do you build infrastructure, but also take into the community aspect because a whole generation of people lost their ancestral homelands in order to benefit the rest of the nation of Egypt. So it was really interesting being there and seeing this with my own eyes, but also learning about this history and thinking about, how to balance community needs, but also infrastructure needs in regards to the projects that we do.
Yeah, a constant struggle and balance. I think you would find that often even here, where it's like, hey, this is not a place that we should be constructing something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the last question I have here, I've been asking all the young pros, is related to hiring and retention and trying to get an understanding from your perspective and from the perspective of what you anticipate for the people coming after you of like, what is a message that we could say to employers or what should we be trying to look at or how should they try and tackle this problem of hiring and retention to reach more people that are your age or younger or the generations that come after?
Yeah, there's a strong rhetoric of the challenges with hiring and retention in general in our industry, but particularly in light of this semi post COVID environment that we're in. And my piece of advice, and what I at least try to do in my own sphere of influence, is to really lean on the people that I know and use those interpersonal relationships to help promote either bringing on new candidates and or new hires, or also keeping people around and really emphasizing why do you stay at a particular company that you're at and what kind of keeps you around. Because I think at the end of the day, yes, we're, at least in my field, you're an engineer, you're on this technical background, but at the same time, we're still humans, we're still people, and we want that connection. So just leaning on our interpersonal connections and leveraging those where it makes sense to both hire and retain folks is just a general good practice in my book.
Yeah, I actually really love that answer because I do get the feeling oftentimes people joke about the kind of the robotic engineer, right? And like not like you still have feelings, you still have emotions, right? Even if you might be a little more analytical than the next person, like that you still have all of your humanity, right? So
Yes,
well, I appreciate you taking the time and talking with me. It's been very nice to chat with you and learn a little bit more about you.
absolutely. Super grateful for this opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. And for everyone who's watching, you can check out the video description below. We'll have a link to the list of all the young professionals this year, as well as a link to another young professional video interview that you can watch right now.